What if the strongest signal that your culture is working is something as simple as fewer people leaving your organization? The challenge is that low turnover doesn't always mean high engagement. In this video, I'll help you separate real engagement from job hugging, explain why this distinction matters for your bottom line, and present you a doable leadership practice that actually improves retention and ROI. If you want to understand what's really happening inside your workforce, that's what this video is about. Across industries, the numbers tell the story. Only about 31% of U.S. employees are engaged right now. Globally, about 1 in 5 feel engaged in their work. Those are the lowest levels that we've seen in years. And this matters because low engagement isn't just a morale issue. It's a business performance issue. Teams with strong engagement are up to 18% more productive and 23% more profitable. And on the flip side, disengaged teams have turnover rates that are 18 to 43% higher. So think about what that means for your organization. Every small decrease in turnover isn't just fewer exit interviews. It can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars saved, or even millions, depending on the size of your business. And those savings run the gamut from recruiting, onboarding, training, and lost productivity. In other words, employee retention is profitable. But there's one catch. A shrinking exit list doesn't always mean your people are loyal or willing to give you their best work. There's a growing trend called job hugging. You've heard about it, right? Job hugging is when employees stay put, not because they're engaged, but because they fear instability or economic uncertainty, or they just don't see better opportunities outside your organization. They're thinking, maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side, so I'll just stay right here. So how do you deal with job huggers? One leader told me, I'll fire a job hugger as soon as I spot them. Well, the problem is, oftentimes, job huggers are really good at going undetected, staying under your radar. This is where leadership is the difference maker. Employees stay out of fear when leadership is passive, and they stay out of commitment when leadership is intentional and authentic. I call this leading with head and heart. Leaders who coach, who develop their people, who clear obstacles, turn reluctant stayers into energized contributors. That shift is where the real ROI shows up. Remember, the retention metric that you track can be misleading when you consider that a portion of your employee population are job huggers. The ROI stems from engaged employees because they don't just stay, they move your organization forward. A recent study shows that 75% of U.S. employees say they plan to stay put through 2027, not because they're satisfied, but because they're cautious. And that kind of retention can mask deeper issues like stalled innovation, flat performance, and disengaged teams doing the bare minimum work. Have some of your teams missed targets or deadlines, or just underwhelmed you in performance? Remember, retention plus stagnation does not equal engagement. This is why measuring the ROI of engagement requires more than tracking who comes and goes. The job of your leaders is to lead with head and heart, creating a culture where people feel valued, challenged, and committed in a shared journey. Is this easy to do? Well, that depends on how self-aware your leaders are. The most effective leaders are self-aware. A Harvard study says that only about 15% of all people are sufficiently self-aware. Let that sink in. Are your leaders self-aware? Because if they're not, they're at a disadvantage. If you ask them to lead with head and heart, their lack of self-awareness is a barrier. They just don't know how to do it. And it's not their fault. It's up to you to help them become self-aware. And it's in your best interest if you want to fix an engagement problem in your business. Here's how I can help. I've created the Employee Engagement Fund ROI Calculator. It's a free model available on my website that you can use to measure the financial benefit of improved employee retention. It factors in your employee headcount, average salary, current turnover rate, and a target reduced turnover rate, a replacement cost factor, and how much you invest per employee in the Employee Engagement Fund plus training. The model calculates your ROI, and you can run different scenarios to dial in a realistic picture of ROI. The link to this calculator is below, and again, it's free. If you're struggling with employee disengagement, benchmark where you are today and see how an investment in engagement could pay off. Whether you work with me or not, the calculator is generic. It's not dependent on my services. Again, I invite you to benchmark your current state of employee engagement and then forecast the improvement in your business with improved engagement. When you run the calculation, you'll get the option to download industry turnover rates so you can see how you stack up with your competitors in your industry. By now, you can see that an engaged employee is profitable, and the opposite is true. Disengaged employees can be a drain to your business, both financially and potentially also a negative impact on your culture. Leaders who lead with head and heart from a place of self-awareness know how to move the needle of engagement because they know how to build and sustain a culture where people feel valued. I encourage you to take time to evaluate your team's turnover risks and consider where leadership behaviors might create a more motivating environment. I wrote a blog post that summarizes all the points that are in this video with a link to the Harvard study that I mentioned and also links to sources that cite the metrics that I mentioned earlier as well. And I've linked up the blog post below. So, in recap, when employee engagement is done right, it hits your bottom line. If your retention is high, but you have a high concentration of job huggers, you could be missing out on performance outcomes. If you want to know whether your leadership is truly working, look at how many people choose to stay and contribute at their highest level. My ROI calculator can help you quantify the impact and see how even small improvements in engagement drive bottom line performance. I'm Bernie Borges, founder of Fulfilled at Work Academy, and if you found this video helpful, tap the subscribe button and consider sharing it with someone. Remember, engagement pays when leadership leads the way.